To say that Cea Person had an unconventional childhood, I'm going to say would be putting it quite mildly. Shortly after she was born, her grandparents moved the whole family, including her 16-year-old mother, off the grid and into the Canadian wilderness. They gave up electricity. So imagine this in your life. You give up electricity, you give up plumbing, all the conveniences of city dwelling, foraging for food, living off the land instead. It was a lifestyle that sent her to the bestsellers list, though, when she wrote about it in her first memoir, North of Normal. Person is back this time with the follow-up, the story behind the story. It's called Nearly Normal. Cea Sunrise Person joins us in studio this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, you don't need to read the first memoir to enjoy this new one, but for those that don't know your story, can you give us a little bit of background?
Sure. So my grandfather was a very interesting character. He had this belief that the only way to truly be free in life was to live completely off the grid. So when my mother was pregnant with me, he decided to move his family from California to the wilderness of Canada. We lived in central Alberta, and for the next 10 years, we lived in teepees, tents, abandoned cottages, trucks, I mean, you name it. Just, completely, living by our own rules. And
so what was a typical day like for you?
There was no typical day because my life changed so much. We moved around a lot. But, a lot of our time was spent hunting and gathering and, making sure we had enough wood to get through the winter and enough food and, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it took, nearly 7 years to get that first book out. In this book, you share the story behind the story.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I was writing North of Normal, it was kind of my first experience with putting my story out into the world. And it was scary for me because I hadn't actually really even told my closest friends about my past because it was kind of, I don't know, I felt, I think, quite a bit of shame around it because it was so different and crazy. So when I was writing North of Normal, I left quite a few stories out. And when the book came out, people kept saying to me, "Oh, Cea, you're so brave. You wrote this amazing story about your life, and it's so crazy." And I was kind of looking at them, smiling and thinking to myself, well, no, actually, I'm not brave at all because I haven't even told the whole story. I haven't told the worst of it. So a lot of my decision was based on my readers' feedback, saying we want to hear more, and also my decision to sort of push myself out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, so the reaction to the first book, I mean, you talk about, your friends reacting to it and you having these other stories inside of you.
Yes.
Did you know that you were going to write another book that had those stories in it?
I did, quite soon.
Quite soon?
Yeah, quite, actually, I think before North of Normal even went to press, I was starting to think about the new book.
And so when you decided to write the new book and you decided to share those stories, and there's been some trauma in your past, what made you decide to share those stories?
I think it was just, my decision that I really wanted to try and be at my most courageous because my first book had reached so many people, and it was really important to me to continue that conversation with people and have, people feel like, a lot of people feel like they don't fit in their lives, or they don't fit into society, or that, maybe they've survived something really horrible in their childhood and they don't know if they'll ever be able to sort of push through that. So I wanted to inspire people and let them know that you can go through a lot and come through the other side and be happy and normal.
And normal, the definition of what normal is. Now, you describe an assault that happened when you were 8, and you write that you felt, quote, a slight loosening of my shame in talking about it. So this was a big part of the story you thought that you would take to your grave, which I find very interesting.
Sorry,
no. What was the decision around that specifically?
I think that it's just, I think so many of our stories are surrounded in shame, and it's important to start these conversations because otherwise they just remain taboo. And, I want people to know that it's okay to talk about these things. And so I felt a little bit like I was sort of taking one for the team, going, okay, I'm going to tell my stories and see if, hopefully that can help someone else.
Scary.
Yeah,
vulnerable.
Totally. Yeah. I feel way more vulnerable with this book than I did with the first.
I bet. It's more of your truth.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, this is ultimately, I would say, a memoir about healing, would you say? And your mother playing a huge role in that?
Yeah, it's definitely a memoir about healing. And my mother and I had such a complex relationship. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that, especially women, the whole mother-daughter thing. But yeah, it's about healing, and healing's not always pretty. In fact, it usually isn't. So it's rather detailed.
Yeah, for sure. I know you have 3 beautiful children now.
Yes.
You and I were talking off camera.
Yeah.
So you've got 3 children. There they are. There. Oh, look at them.
Yeah,
oh, what a
there
stunning
they
family. Oh, they're so cute. So in terms of, you use this word normal quite a bit.
Yeah.
And what is normal and the definition of normal? I mean, do you feel what you would define as normal now?
Absolutely.
You do?
Oh, yeah. My life is like normal/boring. I mean, I live in the suburbs, and I have a great marriage and great kids, and I drive a minivan, and I take the kids to their activities, and it's very, very much what I wanted.
How do you explain to your kids what normal is? Or do you?
We haven't had that conversation yet, but because I think they're too young to sort of have that concept. But we talk a lot about my childhood, and they're very interested in my stories.
All right, and as are we, and we appreciate you being here today. Thank you
Thanks
so much.